and while they were slightly odd, they had a lot of fun, and I'd gone to a couple homeschooling events with them, and I met a whole crew of unusually fun people that seemed to love the Lord and look at life a little differently. And I thought, sure, let's give it a try. And so we've been homeschooling all the way through, and the plan is to finish out all of them that way since we've already launched 2 of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I am Jamie Anderson. I was counting in my head. We have 13 kids, and we have homeschooled for 25 years. So from the very beginning, 8 of them are out of the house, or 8 of them are graduated, and we still have 5 that we're schooling, 17 on down. We started in North Dakota, actually, homeschooling, and the laws were pretty restrictive 25 years ago. I'm not really sure what they are right now. I don't think Tiffany had to have a proctor come in, but we had to have a proctor come in every week to check on how we were doing if we didn't have a high school or a college graduation or college degree. There we go, a 4-year. So the proctor, when she first came into our house, our oldest was 5 years old, and she gave him a spelling test and gave him the word bicycle. And so I was like, whoa, this is really intense. I guess, I got to step up the game a little bit. So we got pretty active with being prepared with spelling words for her when she came, from then on. We weren't there very long, but yeah, it was, I learned later on that that's not really required for anybody to learn to know how to spell bicycle at 5 years old. So, what else? And we've lived in Solway now for 12 years, vaguely before that. So we have grandbabies, and I don't know if there's anything else.
Great. Let me start with the questions since we're talking about encouragement today. We'll start with the encouraging one. What has been encouraging to you as you homeschool? Where have you found your encouragement from? Please tell me you found encouragement.
All right, I'll say one of the most encouraging epiphanies I think that I've received over the years, and anyone that knows me, I have 4 sons and 1 daughter. I'm known to be very bluntly honest, and I am not in any way the perfect mom in any stretch of the imagination. But one of the things that I have found the most encouraging is God has just confirmed over and over again that I am exactly the person he chose for those kids. And if I'm the person he chose for those kids, he will show up every single day and give me the strength to do what he's asking me to do, as long as I do it in what he's asking me to do and not try to do the Marcy special, because his grace is sufficient for what he's asking me to do, and it's very specific. And so I can tire myself up by trying to do the Marcy special, but when I'm faithful to just what he's asking me to do that day, I find him showing up again and again in some amazing ways.
Marcy, can I ask you just how you remind yourself to do that? Like, is there, like, have you had to have
Most of my epiphanies come when I'm hiding out in the bathroom from the children, because that door has a lock. And so just in time, when I feel I'm at my lowest, I feel like I've blown it beyond repair, God, just as I'm pouring out my heart to him, he just fills me with his peace. And my kids are actually very gracious as I apologize to them, which I know it's scary to apologize to kids. And it's something I think I learned right away as a kid that you always apologize. And so I've tried to do it with my kids ever since they were little. But when I explain to them that I'm so sorry for losing my cool or yelling at them or saying something that wasn't kind or necessary and definitely didn't further the kingdom of heaven, which is all those rules we're supposed to follow before we say something, my kids have been so gracious and forgiven me each and every time. And their forgiveness has encouraged me to keep trying. because we're all in it together. What's the question again?
I was going to say, that one's kind of hard to follow. How did you or how do you find encouragement?
When we started homeschooling, I didn't know anything about it because I wasn't raised where that was even really heard of. And a friend of mine had started homeschooling, and she recommended Sunlight curriculum, which was very literature-based and scripture-based. And so we, right off the hop, started with Sunlight, and I would have not been in the Word with my kids. I would have been in Bible story books at their age. But Sunlight had us start off with, we were in the Word every day. We were in there'd be a Bible study book, like a kid's devotion book. And for years, probably until my 10th grader hit like 7th grade, that's how we started our day. And I just remember telling my husband, I would have never started in the Word like this. I would have thought it was too much for them, and I just followed the guide, right? My little guide. And boy, did I put our focus right. Just to start in the Word, to start in the Word, to start in the Word. And the encouragement on this side of things is I've raised some really great humans, and I made so many mistakes, and they are so forgiving. I made a lot of mistakes, but it's just kind of exciting that I have 2 daughter-in-laws that came today, so they want to homeschool their kids. I think that's pretty, so it wasn't that bad for my kids. But definitely being in the Word was huge, so.
So there's so many things being a veteran, like we could pick 20 things that we've learned. There's so many, what's encouraging? Well, you've chosen the narrow path, right? The easy thing to do would be to just say, I can't do this, send them to school. And so since you've chosen the narrow path, it's going to be difficult, right? Because that's what the Lord says is things are going to be tough, And we think about that. We want the perfect school, right? For so many reasons. We want our kids to be smart. We just want good things for our kids and for our family. But the encouraging part for us is, well, number one, my grown kids thank me all the time. And it's a big sacrifice. I have a teaching degree, and we are from Chicago, and we moved here. We were not believers at the time. And when we decided to homeschool, I brought this public school mindset. It's about testing. It's about which kids know the most facts. It's all fleshly things, right? Because we don't want our kids to be last in class. We don't want them to look dumb, for lack of a better word. I don't know. And so the encouraging part for us is, through all of that sacrifice, is the Lord showed us the good and the bad about yourselves. I mean, you guys are going to find out things about yourself with your kids that I don't think maybe the Lord would have worked on if you would have sent them to school. And there were times where and I said this to my kids, and this is we sound like we have kind of similar personalities. And, I could be out with coffee with my friends. If you guys want to misbehave, I'm going to send you to school. And actually one year I did. I'd had it. My kids are close in age, whatever. I know people have more kids than just the 4. But I learned things about myself where I'm like, Lord, show me how you want to refine me, because that refining is going to be a blessing to your homeschool and your kids. It's just going to be a lot more real. And when you see things about yourself as a teacher, and you're willing to die to it, and you're willing to, reach out to friends, like Amy is my sister, and we homeschooled our kids together, and I don't know what I would have done without, and we're different, but we're similar. And so there's just so many things with homeschooling that your family, you're supposed to grow together. And to be I hate the public school system, this is the only reason why I'm the Lord is going to peel that away too, and He's going to show you His goodness and grace and mercy for you, so you can love your kids and show them the goodness and, mercy and love of God, and you're going to learn together, and you're going to sleep late together, and you're going to blow off school one day to just go do something fun instead of do the workbook, and no one's going to tell you how to do it, and you're going to grow, closer to your husband, and it's going to stretch your marriage, and all of it is good. I mean, it's all so good, but the Lord has to be first. And your kids are going to see stuff about you that isn't always great, and I do the same thing where I apologize, and now I'm at the point where they're like, Mom, thank you. Like, it's a sacrifice, but it's so worth it. And the Lord has got to be the center of it, because if He's not the center of it, then it's all for naught. You're building your house on sand, But if the foundation is Jesus, you are going to see some of the coolest stuff personally and with your kids, and that doesn't mean they're going to be perfect. In fact, most of the time, it's getting through the messy stuff where you see the fruit and the beauty on the other side. And so you guys, that may not sound encouraging, and you might wake up and be like, if you can't lock yourself in the room, you just want to send them to school. That is normal, and I would say just be okay with that, because it's a sacrifice and it's a narrow path. But the encouragement is for us to see our kids who are imperfect, they're so thankful for it. Like, they realize, wait a minute, you gave up a lot to be home, and love us and teach us, and you're not perfect, and you screwed up, and, but you love the Lord, and you persevered through, you're still on the narrow path, and now I can't wait to just, teach science to my grandbabies. I have so much homeschool stuff, and so still, that I don't want to get rid of, and my husband John is like, if it's Christian, keep it, because you never know, if you're, going to be able to buy that stuff eventually. So I would say, get through the tough days, be willing to be refined. That's, and it sounds weird, but that was my encouragement. And have a friend, not to compare your kids to. My kid can spell bicycle, while my kid can't spell cat. Right? And just, you guys need that other person, and be encouraged, be confident in yourself, be willing to just be vulnerable to, just to growing, because it's awesome and it's good, and don't give up on it, because it is so worth it in the end. So,
all right, to piggyback on all of you, I would also say the encouragement from our older kids has been amazing. The grace of God to give us time over the spans of the years that we have homeschooled started out very much with a morality-minded home. We want our kids to be the best behaved sitting in church or at the restaurant, or do as I say, not as I do, just very fall in line, try to have everything in order, and we're very, very morality focused. And the Lord shifted that for us when, around 2010, we heard expositional preaching and really understood the importance of the gospel in our kids' lives. And it has been life-changing for our entire family to focus on the sufficiency of God's word. Academics are one thing and careers are one thing, but to see our kids come to understand the gospel, their need for Christ, their need for repentance, our need for repentance, and sharing the gospel. To see our kids sharing, our oldest son, who wasn't saved till he was 21, he did, we sent our kids to Worldview Academy at Northwestern. They learned, to analyze the world from a biblical perspective, and Marcy's kids have gone there. it's amazing. Our son, and they do street witnessing one day, and our son was witnessing for many, many years, even when he wasn't saved, which also falls back on Awana and the verses that they've learned and the sufficiency of just the sufficiency of Scripture and how do we know the Bible is true and all of those things tied together. And in this last year, our oldest son has led 2 grown men to the Lord. One was a homeschool kid who grew up and just basically rejected everything and has just come to the Lord in the last month. And another guy was a 32-year-old agnostic guy in the Air Force with Jaden. And it is just really, really neat to see, you know, when that change came to be focused on the Word of God tied in with everything else. I mean, it's only God's grace because we are such failures. I mean, I can say, my husband would tell you, I mean, we both are just, you know, just clay in the potter's hands, and I'm thankful for that, and I'm thankful that the children He gives us are the same kind of clay. So, anyway.
I'm going to open it up for your questions. Kind of hard to follow after that, isn't it? We kind of went deep, didn't we? Right. Do we have to have lunch every day? We still have to feed them.
Right when Nancy talks about 3 meals a day, that does not happen. It's like brunch and supper. I mean, you know.
Is it okay to start homeschooling at 10 a.m.? Yes.
Is it okay to start at 2?
She shakes her head and says yes.
What have you all found to be the best ways to keep your littles busy while you're schooling your older kids?
I think that the first thing that I've always thought of when keeping the littles busy is how much time will it take to clean up whatever I'm giving them? Because normally the cleanup time is always so worth whatever is going to occupy them for long periods of time. And so I think it varies from child to child. So there's the cleanup factor that I've always but the reusability factor. So when I'm investing in something, can it be entertaining over and over again? And I mean, with having 4 sons, it was anything that was blocks or made noises or caused some sort of mass destruction, or could be creative. With my daughter, it was different cooking things. I always required a small amount of time that the little had to sit with us during the school time. Just normally they had to be even in the room with us. We have a basement that we do our schooling in, and not that you have to do it in a particular room. It was just easier to contain things that way. But I don't think you have to be apologetic for what it takes. I don't suggest devices or anything that's a screen. But you just have to do what you have to do. Even if time looks differently, if you have to wait until the little one's taking a nap. Even for me, somehow I decided to space my children in such a way that everyone was starting kindergarten the years I was nursing babies, which is a really poor choice. I wouldn't recommend it. And so a lot of times we're nursing and teaching at the same time, which can be awkward, but it's just what has to be done just to get through that season of life and to like everybody. And snacks. Snacks are very important to all learning all the time.
Yeah, we often had the little ones just playing in the room with us or even rotating, you know, while working with some an older kid is either reading or playing with another one. So
While you're debating up there, I remember, that's what I'm giggling back there, you two. I'll be the teacher. You two have to separate. I remember Nancy saying, when I had littles, I remember Nancy saying to give them the first time of your day, and that's what I did with my youngest. He and I played Trouble every day for I don't know how many years. Now he's grown out of that, liking that, and I'm sad. But I remember that was really good advice for us as littles needed just the first half an hour or whatever, and then they could go off and play, and you can do your thing. Did you decide who's going to talk between you two?
My kids there's 10 years from my oldest to my youngest. And so I never had more than one in diapers. And so, but we always we were just together. And we joke because we always, Patty and I, we call ourselves Team Chaos when the Grahams and Deans get together. Our house was really small. We lived in a tiny farmhouse, and everyone got used to chaos. I mean, I can't do it anymore, to be honest. Kylie's in 10th grade. I'm like, you have to turn that down. But back then, we just got used to always being together, and hanging out together and trying to divide my time well, which I didn't do well all the time. So.
Did you guys utilize any co-ops in your area, and what co-ops are around this area?
Well, are you thinking the Solway Bemidji area? So the Bemidji area has quite a few co-ops that you can connect with. Linda Simonson is a great resource. The Baja newsletter is also instrumental. I have been a part of a couple of different ones over the years. There was one that was here at Solway that I used to be with Heidi. They can be really a great use of your time if you're wired that way. Currently, I kind of am doing a co-op up in Thief River, which is an hour drive, but we get to use a youth center, and it's just a time for the kids to hang out for a couple of hours. And so there's a lot of available resources. If it will be a blessing to your family and used in a way that's helpful. Some families don't like co-ops. There's some in the area that just do field trips. And so it's whatever you need as a resource, you could probably find a co-op in the area that can help with that.
We did co-ops on and off. When the kids were little, Patty and I did a co-op together here at Solway Bible Chapel. I did a co-op at E-Free. I think they still meet. And I quit doing co-ops because I didn't need more playtime, because I felt like my kids were over-socialized. And it was like, we just were always involved in something. Alana and youth group and church and friends. We celebrate birthdays, our kids. If it's your birthday, we have breakfast together. That was our big thing when our kids were growing up. And so as the kids got older, I decided to join a co-op when it would lift my hands. And so I've been at a co-op in Park Rapids. Every Monday we go to co-op still. I drive 1 hour and go to a co-op in Park Rapids because they offer choir and theater. And that is something that was important to me. And science classes where they did all the experiments there. And that is right up my alley. I don't like science experiments. So I think they're really important if they lift your arms. But I quit doing it when I didn't need another play day. It seemed to be another play day. And we did the play day thing really well. My kids just needed interaction with other kids, so we just made that happen all the time. So, yeah.
Can you explain what lift your arms are means?
Oh, well, for me, to lift my arms, I meant like when my boys were already graduated, I decided to join a co-op that did the science experiments. And because I always do apologia, I love apologia, don't like to do the experiments. And then I really like choir. I'm from a musical family, and my family sings together, and I thought that'd be really neat for my girls. And theater lifts my arms, so I can't teach it at home. So if it's something that I couldn't do at home, and art was another thing, like I'm a workbook mom. If it could all be in a workbook and you get your page done. And so art, science experiments, choir, theater, that just lifted my arms for homeschooling that they could go do somewhere else. Lift my arms. Oh, like when Aaron held up Moses' arms, and helped him out because he was like, right? So that's what I mean by lift my arms.
We have not done a lot of co-op stuff at all. Park Rapids was available, but I was so busy with little ones, and it was just, that wouldn't have lifted my arms. It would have been a stressful thing to get out the door and down the road an hour. So we didn't do that, but now here at our church, we do have the play day, field day, just twice a month. And it's been a blessing for our younger kids to be a part of it.
So this is maybe like I want actual practical advice kind of a question. I don't know how that applies to a panel, but I have 4 kids and I struggle with feeling like I'm never meeting the needs of somebody always at any given time. And I just wonder if you have advice, if there's tips that you've worked through, either just whether anything changes with the kid or even just in yourself. How would you encourage someone like me who's like, oh my goodness, this kid's behind here because I was working with this kid there, or we've been focusing on habits, so we all get the dishes put away, and make our beds, but nobody gets their math lesson done. Like you can only give all your attention to one thing at a time. So how would you encourage me who's like, oh my gosh, and I know I can never get it all done, but I still want to know how to help me through that.
So I would imagine some people in here are probably a little bit harder on themselves than others. That's just our personalities, and we need to consider that we bring our personalities to teaching our kids who have their own personalities. I know that is a fact. Like, you are always, there is always something staring you in the face and I don't know how practical this is, but that you need to get it done. And the reality of it is something has to give. I realized I tried to have eternal goals and then functioning goals. We want our kids to function, right? And so I would be like, well, today is a day where I just really don't care and I'm using making your beds because that's what you said. It could be anything. It could be put your shoes away, or, I don't know, but I know, and I can't think of scripture right now where, that feeling is only going to come from the Lord, and we have to die to so many things. And there are just if there's a day where you're like, okay, we are just going to make it a spelling day, and I don't care if you don't make your bed, because there's just a give and a take, and there's going to be seasons of I want to focus on this, and I promise you, they are going to catch up. So if you're they're behind in math, well, what does that mean? Compared to who? Compared to the scope and sequence that they send with you. Well, by February, they should be able to add double-digit numbers, whatever. You know, I would say depending on how you want your home to run, you know, I hate this saying, and my husband would joke about it, but he would say, a happy wife makes a happy life. And we joke about it, but if them doing all those things in the morning makes you ready for your day, and it's going to make you a better mom, then you do all those things. You get their beds ready. You do all of that, because then you're ready, and it's not in the back of your mind. If your math lesson is 15 minutes shorter than what it would have been, unless it's taking 2 hours to do all that stuff, which sometimes it does with 4 kids, but it's like a give and a take. We feel like we're not meeting their needs and that we're not getting things done because we don't want to get behind. How many of you have homeschooled before, like you've been doing this? Hands, like you've done? Okay, so some of you might be new moms, so that's why I'm asking. I've never done it before. You know, in May, how many of you feel behind? We didn't get this chapter done. We didn't do this. And this person at the conference said, you should get your curriculum done or it's not done. And so there's all these things in our brain, you know, and there's always something that never gets done. Like, I don't know, we did date nights with individual kids. That was more of a social thing, you know. There were times where I was like, I can't homeschool all of you right now. And so I want you to go build me something or pick something that they like to do so I can focus on this one kid. I don't know if that answers your question, but there's something that has to be given up to get to that point because you are human. You can't do everything. Like, there were days where I'm like, we got one thing done today. My house is clean. We got one thing done today. And I felt behind. And I don't know, I think that's normal. Can you all relate to, like, maybe I'm not wording that right, and that's not practical for you, but something has to give to get certain things done, and you just got to be okay with it. And that's an internal thing, and that's this battle with the Lord sometimes, and it's just a growing for you. Like, it's a personal thing. I don't know if anything I would ever say could fix it, but I would imagine you're probably doing a better job than you are giving yourself credit for. And I would imagine that, you know, and it's not always us that sees it. If you, another mom would say to you, oh my gosh, you're doing great. And you are, even though you feel like you're not getting it all done. So I don't know if that helps or not.
Thank you. What else would you also say to practically, like, if it's always, like you're saying, drop, you guys go do that, I'm going to work with this one kid. Well, then you're kind of neglecting the other 3 kids maybe more often than this one kid who needs a lot of attention.
Yes.
I would just say really quickly, practically speaking, it was really eye-opening for me when I realized that I had too much curriculum, that the success of it depended on my presence. And that was really freeing. You cannot be personally responsible for every subject, for every child. It cannot be dependent on you actually physically being there all the time. It is impossible. Like, so you need to switch curriculum, or you need to switch subjects or find subjects that your kids can accomplish without you. There are curriculums like that. Some of the subjects we do with ACE PACES, my kids, because it's a self-driven curriculum, my kids can do some subjects when I haven't even come downstairs yet for breakfast because of how the curriculum is set up. If it's something that they truly can't learn without me, then by all means, I need to make sure that I am right there. But I can't do it. I had 5 kids and I have 3 at home now and I still can't do it because my house has to function. My house has to run. If I'm behind in the laundry, I'm grumpy. Then no one likes living with me. My husband shows up, and if I look like I'm about to kill all the children, that wasn't helpful. So there's curriculum out there that takes me out of the equation, and learning can still happen. We also, for all of our upper math, do Khan Academy. It's free. They score it. Praise Jesus for things like that. Because I had to take me out of the equation because I was getting in the way of success and accomplishment happening. and I wasn't thankful. I wasn't a great person. And once I could come to wrapping my brain around my micromanaging that seemed to try to put me in an equation for every subject, it became a lot more practical. And maybe they can learn the topic without the curriculum, because it's all about learning certain concepts. If you really look at the scope and sequence, let's say for science, from K through 8th grade, if you take the 8 topics basically that are hit in science, you can learn all of those things honestly without any curriculum. You just look at the scope and sequence on plants, you go to your local library, you get 5 or 6 books on plants, your kid reads them, and honestly they know just as much as they would have during that school year on the topic. And so the goal is to accomplish the learning of the topic. It doesn't have to take you 180 days or 150 days, however many. The goal is to learn it. If you can learn it through a song, if you can learn it through a YouTube clip, if you can learn it through your library book, you don't have to do it the way that they're showing you in a curriculum is really only for sequential learners. Otherwise, there's kids that are able to learn the whole picture all at once and absorb it that way and probably save you 130 days of school. So I'm just saying that if you look at school, you want to have them become lifelong learners, but if the goal is to eat away at the topics and the subjects, there are really practical, efficient ways of doing it. And if you can rest with the knowledge that you're not going to be able to give every kid all the attention it's just mommy guilt. It's going to be there. Like the moment the kid came out of you, it started. And it's never going to go away. But you're sufficient because God gave you the kids. So he thinks you're doing a great job. And I'm sure you're doing an awesome job. So I don't know if that helps.
And I would just very shortly say that if you have really young kids, the only thing you need to worry about, or not even worry, but focus on is reading, writing, and arithmetic. And just keep it simple and short and let them play.
You don't actually have to do all the problems on every page. I know it's shocking to some people, especially the math ones. It's okay, that was actually really life-giving to me when the guy at Rebecca said, you know you don't have to do all the problems, right? And I'm like, what? Why do you have them printed then? And he's like, don't stop doing all the problems. He's like, I already look at you and know that you are. Go home and start marking them off. It was really what I needed to hear. So someone out there, don't do all the problems.
I guess mine is kind of specific, but like dealing with reluctant learners, like no matter what you try, no matter what you change up or whatever, how do you deal with reluctant children? I have 4 boys, and they're reluctant, no matter what I do.
I think there's a reason back in history boys were sent out to fields to take care of sheep. Our oldest was the most reluctant learner. In fact, looking back, I probably used the wrong curriculum the entire way from K through 12th grade. Anything that he knows, he probably didn't learn through our homeschooling or our curriculum. And it's okay, because he became he was the best learner when I left him alone. And so just like I had said earlier, I had to trick him into learning. So I would choose a curriculum. Sometimes I looked at the Bob Jones sequence. Sometimes I looked at Rebecca. And I looked at all the topics they were supposed to know. And then I would buy library books, I'd check out library books on those topics and lay them around in the living room and then not say anything. Or honestly, Magic School Bus, what a lifesaver for elementary stuff. And then he learned it, and then I could just usually ask him, do some quizzing, and we called it good. Because the point was to learn the topics. He was also the child that buying a set of encyclopedias was on eBay, because I'm so cheap, was really great, because then he would sit down and just page through it and read things that were interesting to him. And he's a senior in college now, but honestly, I stressed way too much because when he was actually interested about something, I couldn't stop him from learning it. A couple summers ago on his summer break, he got a 500-page book about Napoleon from the library and read it, which I would never make anyone do that. But he loved it, and it, when at the right time, he just came unlocked with different things that he wanted to learn. But I understand the stress because you don't want your kid walking around looking like they're learning nothing. And so there's ways of like subconsciously helping them learn the things in a way that doesn't look like you're actually homeschooling them. And with boys, it's just hard because they really don't care about most of this stuff. They do need to know it for their own safety in the long run, like gravity and how it works and things. But really, it's going to be okay because they have half your genes and half your husband's genes, and he turned out enough that you married him. So it's going to be good.
Nancy's a huge resource for that too. Like, if you call down to her, she's willing to spend time with you on the phone. Like, and she will ask you all sorts of questions. You know, is the reluctance just a character issue? Like, because half the time, you know, how they behave at home is probably not how they would behave in a peer setting because there's more pressure. And so that's part of it. It's like, okay, you know, but there's books on, I know there's a book called The Reluctant Learners. They have book sources, and I'm pretty sure I got mine from the homeschool conference, but, you know, books for boys, where if you have a topic and find what they like. You know, Nancy would always say, because my second was reluctant, and he had a ton of energy. And I find out how they learn. All of our kids learn differently, even from us. You could have a visual learner, an auditory learner, and that's part of it, you know, and make it fun. Make it, you know, I don't know who I was telling. I think Beth, my second he's the one that had to stand learning, you know, or sit on a ball and bounce around. Or, I mean, I let him do stuff on my window with markers because he was out the window and he could be distracted and find a squirrel and still get his math done. I mean, he built tree houses, and I let him go out there and do his math out there. And, you know, but Nancy is a huge, if you need encouragement, call her. I'm serious, because she has so many resources, and she puts your mind like, what do you want for your kids? What do you want from them? Well, first it's all love the Lord with all your heart. You know, God comes first, and then she makes you think like differently, you know, out of the box for your kids, because they're each fearfully and wonderfully made, and they're not going to maybe learn the same of each other. And boys are just tough. I don't know. I had 3 boys and a girl, but boys are God's got just a big plan for them, and we have to be creative as homeschool moms, you know, to just make it look, and you can look different. It doesn't have to look like anything the public school is doing. You get to do whatever you want, and especially in Minnesota, and there are people down in the cities, homeschoolers in our government that are fighting for us to be able to do the craziest things that are going to meet the needs for our kids, and they're going to learn and love to learn, and like lifelong learners, like you said, but I pushed a couple of mine too much, you know, and firstborn, secondborn kind of, you know, boys. And they come out of their shell and learn and know when it's time for the Lord to have them blossom. And we can ruin it as moms. Like, I was like, holy cow, you want to quench fire, just be on them all the time. You got to do this, you got to read by the time you're in 2nd grade. Who says, you know? Well, they have to test. It's all like, you know, reluctant learners are not reluctant forever if you know, not stay on them, I don't know if that's the right thing, but are flexible and creative. And it's a lot of work. I mean, how many, at midnight, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I got to change my school day tomorrow. You know, like, I got to do something different. It's constant. I mean, it's always evolving and changing. And I mean, I've switched curriculums probably way too many times in 1 year, but it's whatever works, you know, but there's something there. It's just, are we flexible to change it up a little bit? So, I don't know.
I was just going to say, too, in our home, as we started changing things up, I did do every other math problem. That was just liberating. And I love math, that's my favorite subject, but it really helped my kids when they feel and felt like I was on their team. And so, like, we always started school 2 weeks in August, and we were in school because that was 10 snowboard days, and so they had that goal of, we start with 2 weeks left in August, we start school because that was 10 snowboarding Fridays that they got to do. And but we couldn't go snowboarding unless school was done on Friday morning, so they had that goal. When I would start with the Becca math, I switched in the high school years, but they took test 1, and if they got an A, we went to test 2. If they got an A, we went to test 3, and that's where we started. Now, one of mine was just like, I'll just start with day 1. It was like, I'm not going to get an A, but I started trying to be more on their team. And I joke with homeschool moms a lot, like, if you want to know how to do it wrong, come talk to me. I have 2 boys first, and come talk to me, because I really did a lot of things wrong, trying to be the best, trying to give them my time, and just smothering them, especially my oldest. But anyway, so just some of those things, to get to snowboard, to if school's done by Friday morning, and then let them finish it. Then I would be like, are you done? We can't go on Friday morning if you don't. And we just quit doing that, and just let them make their decisions. And I realized with my kids, if they got math done by 9, I was like, boom, let's get on English. Boom, you've got time. And for my son Micaiah, it was just defeating. Why would he want to finish early? Mom's on my back. Are you kidding me? And so I did something I thought I would never do, and I had a schedule. This is your scheduled time. From here to here is a math hour, and here to here is science with a half-hour break. So he would get done in 45 minutes, and he would have 45 minutes of free time. He loved it, So it was, I don't know, you just got to keep thinking and praying and asking the Lord, and I don't know your name, but it's hard. I would go to bed at night, and I didn't give Kylie enough time. I feel like my youngest got the least amount of time, and I just go to bed just heavy-hearted, and I had a dark year of just ultimate failure. I just felt like such a failure, and my husband would be like, they're with you all day long. They know you're giving them yourself, and you're with them more than you would have ever been if we weren't homeschooling. I was like, and it sounds funny, but it's true. And saying you're sorry, I blew it, I wish I had more time, I didn't get to that. I think that reality with our kids, when we just shared the realness of our sin, of our failures, of our mistakes, I look where I maybe wouldn't have done that. My husband's really good at just calling a spade, asking for forgiveness, and not covering things up. My kids benefited from that, and they are full of forgiveness, and so anyway, but being creative, trying to get on their team, and yet we didn't go snowboarding unless the school was done. You know what I mean? Like, I realized, my word isn't my word. You know what I mean? And so I did start sticking a little harder on a few things. But yeah, so if you're like me, where you'd be, you're done with science, get done with math. It wasn't rewarding for my Micaiah. That really stunk for him. And so just having that schedule, which I would never do for my Kylie, that wouldn't work. But for him, he could do Legos. He could be out in the snow. He could be, doing whatever. So I hope that helps.
Do you have any tips for how you keep the big picture in view? Like right now it's kind of like a mountaintop experience, and it's like, oh yeah. Then when you go home, how do you remember all that? Do you have a certain mantra or just any practical tips?
Do you mean to get them to the point of when they're going to be grown and independent, or? Right. The only scripture that comes to mind is, for I know the plans I have for you, thus saith the Lord, a plan for good and not harm, right? And the public school is, I got a job for you and I got a college that you need to go to, and I've got 2 in college and 2 that are not. And so for me, and I didn't do this when I was where you were at with little ones, it's not, you almost don't reach these epiphanies until you kind of get towards the end and you evaluate, what would I have done differently? What would I have kept doing? And so it was very hard for me to separate a daily plan and just be like, Lord, this is the day that you have given us, right? And we're going to focus on these things. My mind was always like, well, they need a job, they need to function, and they need to be able to, function with people, and they need all these things of the world. And so I would say that's really hard to do. I never had a mantra. I don't know if that feeling ever went away. Like, I knew that we were growing them to love the Lord and bring that part of their life to the world, right? And so, did you guys have like a daily, my goal was that they would leave home loving Jesus, right? Really, because that's, and Amy. But that was and I lost sight of that because I cared about test scores. I cared about A's. I cared about all that stuff, right? Because we're born to be successful and do well and succeed, but the failures make us successful. And so that's a normal feeling to like the big high picture. And it's difficult to wake up every day and be like, okay, Lord, what do you have before me today? I had to remind myself that all of the time. I think Nancy made you do like that list. She made us do that. Like, she was here 15 years ago, I think, and she made us do that top 10 list. That's the goals for homeschooling. Like, whatever your top 5 are, I don't know, 10, if you can come up with 10, it should be focused around the Lord, and then all those other things will fall into place. So I don't know if I didn't have like a mantra, I don't think, but I don't know what you guys think about that.
I think it is hard to sometimes remember the big picture. And, it is getting through the day. This past week I've been talking to my kids a lot just about, for me to live as Christ, to die as gain. To have that, if we could have that mentality on a day-by-day basis. And I just love what you said, Patty, about, we fail forward. We fail to succeed. Our failures amount to, it's God's sanctification. It's His work in our lives that is, that whole process. And we don't know what anything is going to look like until, all of us can testify that looking at our adult kids who love the Lord and serve Him is it is the biggest blessing of all. And all the academic things and everything, the formula that's set up anywhere, whether it's our own formula or the school's formula nearby, none of it, it's all meaningless, so, it's all part of what makes us who we are, even as Americans or just humans. But in the long run, being eternity focused, I think, is the big picture. And to live for Christ each day, if we could just focus on that, maybe, all the other things fall into place.
And I wonder, like you said, the term trust the process. Can you trust the process that this is what God has planned? Like, God gave you and your husband a heart for homeschooling. God He called you to Him, and He is going to each day unlock what you need for that day to trust, to teach your children. I was thinking about like core values. One of the things I did do with each of my kids, by the time kids are 5, you get a fairly good idea of some personality coming out in strengths and weaknesses and areas where they're needs some growth. And so I would write just on a notebook piece of paper kind of what I hope to see a little bit more of, or introduce them to something. And sometimes I would reference that, but then I also made a list of non-negotiables. And that's actually what I fell back to more. My non-negotiables were things that seemed to cause the worst in us to come out. Like, my non-negotiable is if I'm doing something, if we're working a curriculum, if we're working something, and it's causing us to not like each other to the point where I really don't want to see this child. That's a non-negotiable. Like, God has given me this child, I need to step away. It's a non-negotiable if I am upset that God has ruined my plans for the day. That's not okay. I need to step back. And so my non-negotiables actually kept me in line and kept me more focused, because I'm not really good at visionary stuff, but I'm good at lines I can't cross. And so when I set my non-negotiables or my boundaries, it actually freed me up to trust that everything was going to be okay, because you're here at a homeschool conference. You clearly care about your kids. You clearly want what's best. Your kids aren't going to fall through the cracks. God's going to be sufficient for any gap that there is. And I think we stress because we care, but the fact that you care that much actually means it's going to work out just fine.
And it does. Like, I always tell Amy, if I could tell one thing to new moms starting this or just new to it, is unless you're completely neglectful, they turn out okay. I mean, they really do. And the thing of it is just because you're homeschooling, you're not schooling your kids to turn out the way you want them to. You are the foundation that you are growing them to be the best to your ability. We miss it where we're like, oh, Lord, yeah, okay. Maybe that's not how you wanted me to do it, but you are the foundation. Jesus is the foundation. You're the building blocks to get them to the point where they have a foundation in Jesus. They have a foundation how to serve and love others. They homeschool kids. I mean, my kids are grown, and this is what I always get. Your kids are homeschooled? And I'm like, what does that mean? And it's like, what is it? Well, they're so personable, and they look people in the eye, and they still shake hands. And that comes from home, right? But that is what we want them, how we want them to function in the world, right? Love the Lord, serve others, love others, be personable. And they do. Like, I could think of 10 things I worried about as a kid, and I'm like, or when they were kids, and I'm just like, oh, so dumb. I wasted so much energy. And there are non-negotiables. I mean, there's rules and behaviors and expectations, and, we're molding them. But the big picture in the end is the Lord. So, and that's good. That kind of takes so much weight off our shoulders. Like, wow, Lord, this is your job, and I'm just a tool. So show me the way, It's good.
Today is really to encourage all of you, and this is kind of a mountaintop, it's rah, homeschooling. But Monday morning, Tuesday morning, Wednesday afternoon, like, are we doing? Do you have any, when those moments hit, Marcy, you said that you go cry in the bathroom. Do you guys have, a secret chocolate stash? I personally okay, we're going to just try this again tomorrow, and, each day is new mercies, thankfully.
I think practically speaking, it takes us 156 days of school every year. That's really what we do. Like, for better or for worse, that's just a number that I chose. And it sounds odd, but then I take my curriculum and I say I can do 156 days of schooling and still love the Lord and love my kids. And so we're going to do what we can in 156 days. And if the day is a wash, then that day didn't get crossed off. I just eat away 156 days. Just practically.
Can you make a chart that has 156 and then just X them off each day?
No, but I keep
It sounds
track
like a
by
good idea.
month. So I have 9 months printed out in my binder, and then at the end of the month I keep track of the amount of days that we actually had. Each season's going to look so differently. Right now, I have an aged mom that I'm working to get into assisted living. So I'm making a lot of, and she broke her ankle this summer, so I'm making a lot of trips out of town to an hour away to go help with medical needs and doing things like that. And I simply cannot do school right now 5 days a week. Some days my kids still do school without me because I've done enough curriculum that they can do stuff without me and it's fine. But I just got to the point where I cannot be the best wife and running a household if I do more than 156 days. It's actually one of the lowest numbers you can do in the state of Minnesota for a public school, if anyone's really wondering about the number. Clearbrook's lowest that they ever did was 156 days many years ago. And when I found that out, I was like, why would you ever do any more if that's the minimum? And so then we get done what we can, 156 days, just from a practical speaking. And if you have kids under 6th grade and it's taking more than 3 hours to do school, you're doing it wrong. If your kindergarten is taking longer than 45 minutes a day, you're doing it wrong. Just frankly, like you simply don't have that many hours in the day. You've got to sleep, you've got to clean your house, you've got to love your husband, you need girlfriends. Get out of your house and go do something fun. You simply cannot spend all of your time on your kids. That's just weird. Like just have a life still. So figure out your number, stick to it, X it off, make yourself a chart, make yourself those rings that you connect for a countdown, and just get your schoolwork done. And it's okay. Like this year for my youngest one, never before he's in 6th grade, he's only doing school 4 days a week. Is there a logical reason why? No, I've always wanted to try it, and I figured why not? He's my youngest. I have the other two still have to do it 5 days a week. He loves me way more. We have way more fun. Now that we're only doing it 4 days a week, that's fine. It's just the way it is. He does have to do a little bit more schoolwork on those 4 days, because I still have everything divided up to 156 days because I'm psycho. But it's honestly, like, if everyone's happy, learning is way more fun anyway. So just figure out what you need. Ask your husband. Ask him which days of the week he likes you the most. And you'll probably find it's the days that you're actually more fun at school and not as stressed up. And ultimately, the kids leave the house, and then you're stuck. Not stuck, you're still with your husband. So you got to be building and investing in him too, and no one wants to invest in someone when they're crabby. So figure out a way to not be crabby and school your kids, and yeah, you'll just like life so much better.
And be honest with your kids when you're crabby. I mean, just really, like, I don't feel like doing school today. Yeah, me neither. I mean, and you get through it and you do it, and there may be days where you're like, should we not do it and go do something fun? You do need to give yourself that permission. Like, there are seasons where, I have done school 4 or 5 days for the last 9 weeks. You have to give yourself permission and trust, like, your prayer life is huge because you're not going to hear from the Lord with your school if you're not in the Word or you're not praying, or you're not praying. The enemy is coming after you. You guys are doing something that is not good. Your kids are in the Word every day, I mean, often, more than they would at school. There is like a target on your forehead. And so you need to be grounded in the Lord and ready for battle. We've gone to retreats where we're like, we go home Sunday night, I love you. And then Monday morning, it just all hits the fan. You're like, what did I just do all weekend? That's because the enemy is like, you've picked a fight. And so just be strong in that battle with the Lord, and just be honest with your kids too. Like, that's pretty freeing. Not that that's a continued behavior that you want, but I think the kids love honesty. I'm crabby. Yeah, you are, Mom. It's like, oh, okay. We need to change it up a little bit, but I don't know. There's something about being tight with the Lord during those times to get you through it, good and bad, I guess.
Also, I think you need encouragement from other moms. So if you don't have that other mom, find her. If you don't think you can find her, anybody can take my number and call me for encouragement, because there's good days and there's bad days, and we need to encourage one another. And so therefore we need to give encouragement, and we need to receive it, and we need to be real. And I'll tell you, my closest friends have seen my house at its worst. Heidi stopped at my house last week, and was it this? And I was in my pajamas. I had not done my hair. I had stuff on the counter, and she was like, "I'm at your door." And I said, "Great, come in." And I was like, "I am not running to the bathroom to do anything." And we sat on the couch and visited, because that expectation has to die, that I keep the perfect house and my kids always have their perfect manners, and you know what I mean? And we need to encourage each other and have grace for the mom that's going through it and the kid that's rebelling, and we need each other. We need to extend grace, receive grace, and encourage one another. And so if you don't have that, find it. And it's here. I know anybody would give their number out. So
I actually didn't see any dirtiness in Ian's house. It didn't bother me.
No.
When I came to your house on Thursday.
I love when I go to someone's house and they're like, it's a mess. My first word is, "Praise the Lord, I can feel good about myself. Let's go." You know,
I didn't know.
it's like, okay, let's experience some more normal.
My question is more, not necessarily with schooling, but I am with my kids all day, and I know I'm so blessed to have my boys. But so how do you practically get in time with them that's not, I've been with them all day time? If that makes sense. Or even just relate. It's so easy to be like, I'll do that later. Like play. I don't know. I can't. And then later comes, and most of the time I just don't want to. It's something I don't want to do because playing trucks is painful. But if you have any practical tips, if like actually like relational time, not necessarily like we're in the same house all day long, kind of time.
Can you reward yourself if you do it? Because no, seriously, I feel your pain, because once I was done schooling, and it's still like that, I don't want to be by them. I want to be getting something accomplished that's going to maybe make me feel better about the house, or I'm really maybe not that fun to play with to begin with. And so, especially when they were young, I would set a timer and force myself to do it so that I had some sort of accomplishment that I had played with the children. Now, and I honestly, now that they're older, I can't really do it well when we're at home. I don't know that I'm fun at home. We actually have to leave the property for me to become fun. And that's maybe okay. And so, like, if I go, and especially if I go and I want to make sure I'm engaging, I can't have anything else with me. Like, I have to be bored, so that then I will play with the children, because I actually hate being bored more than sometimes I hate playing with the children. And so just be intentional, set a timer, start small, because it's going to be really painful right away. Like 10 or 15 minutes of really fun, and then be done. Like, and then you can build it up. Like, you don't have to feel bad. I understand it's not fun, and sometimes the things you want to play are so boring, and you're like, I've already spent so many hours of my life with you. You're sucking the life out of me. You're wasting my life. Which is, these thoughts come through. They're not always true. Sometimes they are. But reward yourself. Like, you could do stickers. Like, I did 5 days of 30 minutes with the children, and I was fun. I'm going to go have ice cream or coffee, or don't feel bad. I don't know. Moms throughout history, were they even really, do we know for sure they were fun and playing with their kids? Is there any evidence when you read those old-fashioned books, how often was Ma Wilder actually doing something fun with her kids? I don't know. Pa played the fiddle, they all danced. But really, I think we have a weird expectation that I'm not even sure is normal. And isn't that what dads are for when they come home?
That was my suggestion.
So, I don't know that you really, like, I've never found a piece with it. So that's why I've had to set up a system. Because it just feels weird, like, to do it. So I don't know.
I was going to say, we would hang out with Patty and her kids. Like, we had, I mean, literally we had a lot of liberty of just, Patty might call and say, Aim, because that was answering machine time. Amy, and I knew she's coming for coffee. We're blowing this morning off. So, but yeah, I think there's so much expectation on moms today on every person on the face of the planet to be so much more than what you're called to be. And there's just this, we're supposed to be the perfect wife, the perfect mom, the perfect homeschool mom, the perfect friend, the perfect church servant, the perfect daughter, and there's just so much that we put on ourselves. And I married a man of grace. My husband is just a man full of grace, and I'm a legalist. I like my box, and I like to check it off. And so there's a lot of the legalist person, I don't know how other way to word that, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And you know what? You're called to parent and love your kids. And so you're not called to be their best friend. You're not called to meet every single need that they have. It's been hard to walk with my kids and just be like, I have no idea. We're going to have to pray. I don't have friends, Mom. We're going to have to pray. You know, I've sat night after night with my daughters through the years. And I didn't have all the answers, and I couldn't be everything that they needed. But I could take them to the Lord, you know, and those years are gone, and there's beautiful, I'm so thankful for their friendships. But the little ones in playing, man, if you got a friend who's got littles, I drank a lot of coffee while our kids were playing. And our kids thought we were really fun. And we were
playing outside. Play outside. You're going to be fine.
So.
And if you take photos of every single time you're playing with them, and those are the ones in the scrapbooks, really their memories will be that you played with them all the time. It's really about how you frame things.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the problem in social media and the culture that we have now, because everything we see, whether it's a mom who's showing this glamorous life of all the fun and all the clean house and all of that, or the other side of it where you get kids complaining about their parents, and then you have that mom guilt, so I think we really have to stay away from those comparisons and just do your job, just, one day at a time. Whatever you find, maybe there's something you really like to do and your kids would love to do that with you, and that would be your fun.
Just don't go on Facebook in August where all the moms are like, my kids are back in school, don't do that, because it's not reality for a homeschool mom, It's been such a long summer, and then you're like, oh, I've got 9 months of this, don't do that. It's a lie, but take mom time. I think maybe not your kids, but there's a point where in homeschooling where I think it's a habit where the kids start to be like, they don't think they're in charge, but there is well, who's in charge here? You guys or me? Because I need a break. And I don't think it's on purpose. I just think they're so used to mom all the time. And so, me time, super important. Bathroom time, door locked. If that's what you need, super important. But, and for individual time, for me, I would say to John, I don't want to be their teacher today. I just want to be their mom. I don't want to be their disciplinarian. I don't want to be their, I want to just, and so we would do date nights. We would just go for ice cream and not talk about school or their behavior that day or, something. I don't know. You just go listen to them, because then they can talk and you can take a break and you're still with them. But, and it doesn't have to be all the time. Life is busy, but that individual time is super great, once a month, once every, I don't know. If it's affordable, take them on a date night and just one kid at a time. But I would say no guilt taking care of yourself at all. Did that help?
I remember Amy also told me that Thursday night was her night to go to wherever. She just took one night a week and went and did whatever she wanted to, and there are lots of weeks where I don't want to go anywhere, and your husband would be like, nope, you're going. And you were glad that you had done that.
That does not include Walmart. Although I've seen quite a few homeschool moms in Walmart. This is my alone time. I'm like, take it Just enjoy it.
Sometimes Walmart, it gives us a good chuckle, so that's, stress relief. So on those nights, where would you go?
I actually went, my mom lives up here, and so Thursday nights I went with my mom. Actually went to a weight loss thing. We went to Tops, and then we always went out to eat, and then my sister would come, and we would just go. I would just go every Thursday night, and I'd go shopping afterward, drop off my mom, go to whatever. But I got out every Thursday night, so it was partly to be with my mom, but it was partly buy grams for one night. So yeah, and it was a good thing. We need each other. We homeschool moms, just sisters in Christ, we need each other. And my mom is my sister in Christ, and so is my sister. But yeah, so I would just go. But my rule is it's an epic failure if I wind up at Walmart. I will not. Epic failure, like I will not go to Walmart on one of those nights.
And I would definitely separate, like, if you need to go talk to another mom about homeschooling, that's great, but don't make that your night out alone. Like, there were nights where we're like, we're not going to talk about our day, we can talk about our husbands, but it has to be like, not in a bad way, but like, oh, we love our husbands so much. Like, no, not like that. I didn't mean it like that, but like how blessed we were, whatever, sorry. But don't talk about, if something's heavier on your heart and you're struggling, talk about it, but really give yourself time to just be like, not homeschooling. Like, you can talk about, I know it's your whole life. It's in us. It's like every part of our body is, I am this homeschool parent, and you just have to give yourself the time. If you go with another homeschool mom, just be like, okay, how can we encourage each other in the Lord? And homeschooling might come up because that's where you're at. That's your job. It is your job, right? 24/7, but do something fun, do something, I don't know, but you do not have to talk about homeschooling when you're out with another homeschooling mom. Like, there's plenty other. And then if you need encouragement, then find a time to do that too. It's okay to be alone more than one night a week, right? Like, this is my one night or whatever, you can work out alone time in a lot of different ways. So, and as the kids grow, it's going to get easier. I'm telling you, it's going to. If you have little ones right now, ages 2 to 12, this is tough. This is a tough season of life. If you have multiple kids that age, it is just tough. It is not going to be easy, but I promise you, if you push through it, it's going to be worth it. You wait and see. I'm telling you.
And I wouldn't make it a make or break. Like, we live in Clearbrook, which is so far from everywhere, so it's not possible to get out one night a week, especially in the wintertime. That's where bedtimes are very important and absolute. We have had the standard that you have to, I don't care if you're sleeping, like, you have to be in your room at 8. And even when they're older in high school, they sleep in the basement once they get older. But they have to be downstairs by 9, because I have to have time where I'm either by myself or hanging out with my husband, and we're not with the children. I can't enjoy them if I see them every single moment of the day, and I can't get alone. And if it's 20 below and the roads are bad, I'm not leaving the house anyway. And so don't make it like that your week is ruined if you can't get out of the house. Like, build in the rhythm of your household needs to be life-giving in and of itself, so that you're not running from it because you've made it a place where everything works. So you're still getting time alone, even if you have to lock the kids outside from 1 to 3. Highly recommend it. Just make sure that they're clothed appropriately for the weather, but they're going to be fine, especially if you have any outbuildings. And just take the time that you need, because it's not always practical to actually physically leave your location, but you need to do what you can with what you have.
It's been a little bit different for us. Our older kids started doing date nights for Joel and I. So they would say, okay, go to your room, and they would make something up and, get sparkling grape juice or whatever and cinnamon rolls. That was for many years just one thing of the Pillsbury cinnamon rolls, and come and serve them to us on a platter, and sometimes a candle and things like that. So you can still have those alone times in the home, and that has been just an amazing blessing that has passed on down to even the younger kids. So on a wintry night when you can't get out, you can still have nice date nights.
Well, and you're setting the stage for your kids. Our kids need to know that it's okay to be alone. I mean, they're together 24/7. There were days where my kids were like, I don't want to be with them because I'm with them all the time, and they need a break. But the point of alone time is to reboot, right? And they need that. They need to see us be alone because they're going to want to be alone, and that's their time to reboot, have a better attitude, take a break from everybody. I mean, Jesus did it. I mean, he really did. And so it's actually healthy to see mom and dad do it together. They need, because there are times in the house, we lived in a really small house, and there were 6 of us, and it was hard to be alone, but you can make it work. They should have alone time almost every day. And then there's times where they can't be apart from each other. That's the weird thing too. It's like they can't stand each other 1 minute, and then when you're out in public, they have to be by each other. It's really a weird kind of, it's a homeschool thing. But alone time for them is really good. And so I think mom setting the stage, because it does, socially, you're just, and this is just me, where I'm just like, I've had enough of people. I need to just go be alone. And that's a healthy thing for them to see, staying mentally healthy.
I keep wanting to say things, so I just will. My microphone was muted back there, but I had to let go of helping at Awana on Wednesday night in church, and having that guilt of, why aren't you helping at Awana? And my guilt and the other people's being on, asking, why aren't you helping? Like, well, Wednesday night, Aaron took the kids to Awana, and then I was home. And I tried to have enough energy to clean my tub to have a bath. And that was because Amy's like, I had one night, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to have one night and not be feel guilty about that. But I think it's important too for your kids to have alone time so that they can sit in church without screaming and hollering or making a fuss or whatever. But that might have crossed a line. Anyway, any other questions?
I have a question. Was it worth it?
Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely. It was all worth it.
The jury's out.